I suppose it's kind of a rare thing nowadays to find a game that no one has talked about, at least in a comprehensive manner. Hell, even the last game I looked at, a loathsome FPS creator game, had at least a little coverage. This is not the case, however, for The Devil Inside. Probably the most meaningful content that this game has is one walkthrough in Russian. The rest are just random tidbits of gameplay or streams. It doesn't help that there is a movie by the same name that came out in 2012, and the most recent entry in the Dark Pictures anthology is called The Devil in Me. Both tend to clutter the search results when looking for info on this game. But honestly, there is very little to talk about in terms of development, or really anything surrounding the game. It was published by Cryo, at least in the EU, who certainly had a bit of prestige when they were around. The developer, on the other hand, Game Squad, well, they made The Devil Inside, which seemed to be a commercial failure, and the only other game they made was a tie-in with the movie From Dusk Till Dawn. The aforementioned Dusk Till Dawn game reused the same engine as The Devil Inside and was released only a year later. Clearly, this was a Hail Mary to keep the company afloat, one that obviously did not pan out. And that's pretty much all there is to say. I mean, look at the Wikipedia article on this game. Yeah, not a lot to work with here. Well, since there's not much left to talk about, let's get this show on the road. The conceit of The Devil Inside is that it's a reality TV show, and the game does a good job of conveying this right off the bat with this cheesy intro. We're also introduced to most of the key players here, but if you aren't paying close enough attention, you might miss it. But basically, we have Dave, a former LAPD officer, who joined the show for a shot of fame and money. Deva, we'll get to her later. And finally, Jack T. Ripper, who hosts the show. You probably already know what they're going for with him, but he's the smarmy entitled talk show host who's actually an asshole. But with this first TV intro out of the way, we're treated to another cutscene. Basically, this is here to just establish the location we're going to, but I gotta say this looks so good. I don't know how they pulled this off, but it almost looks like actual footage being filmed from a helicopter. Anyway, we arrive at Shadowgate. No, not that one. Effectively, it's a giant spooky mansion that's been taken over by paranormal entities, and it's our job to kill them and look good doing it. We get into position and we're ready to get started, but as we arrive, so do the cops. They quickly form a blockade and run in to contain the threat. This is actually some pretty good world building, because the cops only show up in this intro part of the game. When we actually enter the mansion, we never see them again. So this implies multiple things. One, this demon shit is actually a serious enough threat that the police need to get involved. And it's not just some fringe stuff no one is going to believe. This also means that Jack T. Ripper or some studio executives have convinced the police to let us do this. But in all actuality, this is a pretty good deal for the cops. I'm sure they ain't trained for this shit. Hell, they're hardly trained at all.
Why did you shoot, sir? I tripped.
But especially not for demons from hell. So if I were in the position of a police chief poring over the numbers and a TV executive came along and basically said, "We'll solve the problem ourselves as long as you stay out of the way as much as possible," I would be very inclined to take that deal. So upon actually playing, we have to come to grips with the controls, and they're a little strange. So when playing a typical third-person shooter, you can move backwards, forwards, strafe left and right, and wherever you point the mouse, that's the direction your character will go. And The Devil Inside mostly does this. You can strafe left and right, but it's more of a sidestep than a strafe. And when moving forward, you are technically going in the direction of the mouse. Still, it would be more accurate to say that you're steering your character rather than pointing them in a direction and them just going in that direction. In terms of combat, it actually plays a lot like Resident Evil 4 of all things. All your weapons are equipped with laser sights, you must go into an aim mode in order to shoot, and you can't move and shoot at the same time. However, you can move and aim at the same time. Also, if you want to interact with anything, you must first holster your weapon. Which can be annoying sometimes, sure, but I think it's a great benefit to this game, as especially when opening doors, you have the potential to be caught off guard. However, if you know there's an enemy on the other side, you can spare some of your ammo to shoot doors open. Finally, the last move in Dave's repertoire is the ability to crouch. This helps steady your aim and lets you become a smaller target. However, you cannot move normally like this. Instead, Dave will perform a dodge roll. It can be useful, however, you can only roll backwards and forwards, limiting its use. Our first introduction to the game is the grounds of the Shadowgate Mansion. I must say, it's not a great first impression, and it's not just the fact I'm still getting to grips with the controls. Basically, we're treated to big open areas with very few things of interest in them and only extremely slow zombies to fight. It's pretty drab. Considering there isn't much going on, I'll introduce the camera system. Since this is a reality TV show, naturally there is going to be a camera. What's unique though is that there is an actual NPC cameraman following you around the whole time. The instructions say that you need to protect him, but I'm unsure if this is just a bit of flavor text. He's so hardy that he can get attacked constantly and he'll be fine, so thankfully you don't have to worry too much about it. There are 3 cameras in total. A spy camera that seems to be mostly static, the cameraman, and the flying camera, which you will be using as your traditional third-person view. Finally, you can view the feeds from these cameras simultaneously during gameplay. Now you're probably asking what this whole reality TV show setup and all this focus on cameras amounts to in-game. And the answer is, basically nothing. The whole thing really amounts to no more than set dressing, which at the very least makes for a unique premise. I'm a little torn on this because the entire game is more or less centered around this idea, but on the other hand, I'm glad they didn't force in some half-baked mechanics that would have detracted from the game. It honestly makes me wonder if they were originally going to have the entire perspective be from the cameraman. If that were the case, I'm sure glad they didn't do that because he has a lot of trouble keeping up, and he has a tendency to get stuck. That being said, I did have his feed rolling for a lot of the early game, just because I thought it would be neat, and occasionally it was actually helpful. Out of the corner of my eye, I would see the cameraman pass by an enemy I didn't know about, alerting me to its location. I eventually stopped bothering with it though, but it's probably not for the reasons you would expect. I'll elaborate more on that later. We fight our way up to the mansion, and after acquiring the key to the place and searching the surrounding area for supplies, we head in.
He's real cool, isn't he?
A nice touch is that the loading screens are treated as if they were a commercial break.
Are we okay for a commercial break? Stay right with us now.
Here we are at the eponymous Shadowgate, and this is where I start vibing with the game a lot more. We're out of the drab nothingness to the quintessential spooky mansion, which I'm 100% on board with. Unfortunately, this is a double-edged sword, as now it's time for the confusion to set in. The devil inside's biggest problem is how it conveys things to the player, or should I say how it doesn't. It's especially confusing here in the early game, when you're still getting to grips with how everything works. The biggest cause of this is finding items. Let's take Resident Evil for example. Bam! There's the item right there. Ray Charles could see that shit. The items are easy to find, but figuring out what to do with them is the challenging part. Can you tell me where the important items in this room are? How about a completely unmarked stove? It's funny, it's completely the opposite of something like Resident Evil, because once you find the items, it's typically extremely obvious what to do with them. I'd like to say I got the hang of checking every nook and cranny to get items to progress, and I did to some extent. Even still, I was consistently being tripped up because I didn't check a random box or something. We also start finding notes in the mansion, which certainly was not a special attribute of a horror game, especially by 2000. However, it's relevant to this discussion because I'm using it as a segue to talk about the game's writer, Hubert Chardot. He was responsible for the screenplays/scenarios for a select few fairly well-known games, especially when he was working for Infogrames. The most famous of which was Alone in the Dark, which he did the screenplay for. It seems like Alone in the Dark had 2 writers, so I don't know if he wrote all the notes you find, or if he just wrote the overall story. Regardless, he was certainly a competent writer, and definitely would have added some credibility to this studio's first game. Unfortunately, it seems like his talent was wasted here. First of all, the actual story bits you get via cutscene are extremely minimal. We aren't given any backstory on anything in-game, you have to read the manual for that. The nitty-gritty details are in the notes you find. I at least assume they are, because I didn't find very many of these. The aforementioned problem of the items being hidden in hard-to-find places applies to all these notes too. The difference being I didn't need these to progress, so most of them went unfound. Here's a note I found in a toilet, which I would have never found in a million years. The only reason I did was that the walkthrough I was consulting for a different problem mentioned it. It seems a little counterintuitive to do this, including the details of your world and extremely hard to find notes. It seems like there's pretty interesting stuff going on too. I managed to find this newspaper that talks about how Satan and Lucifer are different entities fighting over hell, and that's why all these monsters are roaming the earth. In fact, Deva specifically serves Lucifer. Oh wait, I haven't talked about her yet. Well, no time like the present. Throughout the game, you'll find various places where Dave can transform into his alter ego Deva. As I mentioned before, she serves Lucifer, and according to the manual is tasked with sending the souls of the monsters both Dave and Deva kill back to hell. Instead of using firearms, she uses magic that pulls from a mana bar. This will recharge over time, but she can also get mana back by sucking up enemies' souls. Deva can also regain health by being lit on fire, as some enemies will burst into flames after death. As interesting as this feature is on paper, the reality is Deva kinda sucks. Her attacks against zombies are fine, but as soon as the game starts introducing new enemies... Side note, these enemy designs are really cool, and they implement how these criminals were executed. Their whole vibe reminds me a lot of Shadow Man, honestly, but back to Deva. She can only handle a few enemies before she runs out of mana. You're probably thinking, well, just suck up their souls to get it back. Few problems with that. First of all, I don't even really know how to do it properly. There is no specific suck souls button, and I thought it just occurred by right-clicking with your weapons holstered. Or your hands holstered. This doesn't seem to be the case, though, as sometimes she'll continue to just ready her magic and de-ready it without sucking them up. Secondly, this animation takes an extremely long time, and you're a sitting duck while it's happening. Finally, and this is the biggest kicker, is that enemies can swallow souls too. After you kill the enemy that sucked them up, they'll be back again, but how are you supposed to kill them to get the mana when you don't have any mana left? A smaller thing, but also extremely detrimental, is that Deva can't crouch. Instead, she gets to fly. Well, I say she gets to fly, but you don't get that ability towards the end of the game, and it's only required to be used once, and then I literally never used it again. So yeah, definitely not worth the trade. So basically, as Deva, you'll fight a few enemies, run out of mana, run back to where you can transform to Dave, and come back as him to finish the job. Really, besides saving ammo and farming health from zombies, playing as her really isn't worth it. Well, after bumbling around, I managed to find a shotgun, and after that I pull some Scooby-Doo hijinks by moving a bookcase in order to reveal a secret entrance. After progressing through a home theater, we come across this guy who harassed us earlier when we first entered Shadowgate. This design is so awesome. An electric chair victim, he now flies around in the instrument of his execution, sporting 2 miniguns. After taking care of him, we open this door and head outside, and we're introduced to the big bad of the game, the Night Howler. A former serial killer, he somehow managed to convince Satan he was innocent. Him and all his lackeys have come back to wreak havoc. Damn, no wonder Lucifer is trying to usurp Satan if he was somehow convinced of this guy's innocence. In terms of being cheap, this is probably the worst the game gets, as the bombs he throws will kill you in one hit. Luckily, they're pretty easy to avoid, and he goes down without too much trouble. Defeating him grants us a film reel, and you can probably guess what we need to do with that.
Hey, I think we hit the jackpot. Are we okay for a commercial break? Stay right with us now.
Well, here we are up in the attic. There are mirrors we can shoot with stuff behind them. Or sometimes there's nothing behind them.
Hey, chill, babe. Save your ammo. Unlucky.
Also, you'll notice that the cameraman is gone. A cutscene is supposed to play where he gets kidnapped, but I think I broke it by accidentally leaving the area and coming back. We're introduced to this new enemy type, an extremely tall demon who's been skinned alive and is sporting a grease gun. I go on my merry way taking out demons, and I make it to a save point. I should mention the save system, I suppose. Some of these save points are permanent while others explode after a single use. The fact that some of these explode really fucked up my mentality for using them, as the majority of the save points you come across at the beginning of the game all explode, but the game changes gears about midway through and starts having permanent saves easily accessible. Plus, these areas are not very large, so the mere metric of having a permanent save on the same floor pretty much means you can save whenever you want to, and it's not that much of a hassle. So I'm kind of questioning why they bothered with these single-use save points at all. Alright, this crate probably has something in it. What the hell? I can't move. No, seriously, the camera is stuck on me and I can't move at all. Well, whatever. I got plenty of ammo at this point, so I'll be okay if I miss one. Let's just hope it doesn't happen again with anything else. Ooh, what have we here?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Science Channel. I'm Angelina, and tonight I am going to expose the sick hoax of Mr. Jack T. Ripper. Mr. Ripper, you are a despicable sham, and I am going to prove it here live on SSSW.
What the hell? I don't know what you're doing here, but please get the hell out of there. That house is cursed. Dave, get the lady out of there.
And as for the pathetic role you're...
Let me introduce you to Angelina, a reporter for the Science Channel who's here to try and expose the devil inside as a hoax. Okay, but the fact that this stuff is real must be common knowledge by the mere fact that the police are involved. Some police chief would be at a podium saying, demons are real, they're from hell, now they're here. It's an overall bad situation. I mean, she must have seen the police when she arrived. Does she think they're all actors? This also brings up an interesting point. Jack T. Ripper might be an asshole, but he is right. The house is extremely dangerous and his warning to Angelina is genuine. I say it's interesting because Jack follows the standard greedy TV show host archetype pretty well, and I'd say this whole setup is a pretty clear homage to the Running Man. At the very least, Jack has extremely striking similarities to Damon Killian. Damon, on the other hand, is a straight-up bad guy and is manipulating the outcome of the show for his own gain, and is dealt with appropriately.
Drop dead! I don't do requests.
Jack, on the other hand, isn't actually in the wrong here, besides exploiting the situation for money and fame. Even so, he is still technically a good guy here. Oops, ran out of mana as Deva. We deal with the room as Dave, get our cameraman back, and a box of fuses which we need to use in the next room. Oh fuck, are you kidding me? What the hell am I gonna do? Unlike the box from earlier, I need to interact with this in order to progress. If I can't figure anything out, my playthrough ends here. In terms of troubleshooting the game, there's diddly dick out there on the web. The copy of the game I'm using is from the collection chamber, so it's fixed up to work on modern systems. This is the best possible version I could be using. There is one guy in the comments who had the same problem. What did he do in order to fix it? Start the game over, god damn it. Okay, let me test something before we get that drastic. Dave is up. Yes, it works as Deva. But as we know, Deva sucks. So we have a couple of options here. Number 1, load an earlier save, get to this point, and see if it works as Dave. Well, I tried it, and it doesn't. Number 2, start the whole game over and hope it doesn't happen again. It certainly wouldn't take as long to get to this point now that I know what to do, but I can't just run in throwing my life away. While I do have plenty of supplies at this point, if I'm too reckless, I might fuck myself over. Plus, there's no guarantee that this won't happen again. Number 3, try and brute force the game as Deva. While I can interact with stuff as her, if I get locked into a boss fight or for whatever reason I can't switch to her, I'm screwed. As nerve-wracking as it is, I've decided that I'm gonna go with option number 3, and we'll just have to see if that pans out. I stopped using the camera features just in case that has something to do with the game breaking. Probably not, but you can't be too careful. This game has become a ticking time bomb, and I have to defuse it. Well, fixing the fuse box gives us the ability to use the elevator, and now we have easy access to every floor of the house. But most importantly, we can now go to the second floor.
John? John? Stop it, that's not funny. What the f- Dave? Dave! Dave!
Well, looks like we can't go as Dave, so it's up to Deva. We're introduced to this fucking ghost who's going to be a thorn in my side for this entire segment of the game. Luckily, though, in the very next room, we can transform back into Dave, and there's a permanent save. Oh great, I can't even open doors as him now.
Come and play with me.
Oh, come on! Yeah, it's unfortunate that this is happening. Luckily, the proximity of the permanent save and the ability to transform is a great help, but it's still annoying to have to run back and forth. In spite of all these setbacks, I'm still really enjoying this game. The look, the feel, the combat with its satisfying dismemberment, it's all still doing it for me, so I'm willing to persevere through this. I suppose my perseverance will be tested because I have no idea what to do again. After looking it up, I need to go back to the bathroom, which has tokens in this box. This is especially egregious because I literally interact with everything else in this room except this box because it doesn't catch my eye at all. Well, we use these tokens on the pinball machine in the game room, and that opens up the next area. After fighting my way to a sauna, I kill this zombie, and that's supposed to stop the ghost from coming after you, but it doesn't work and he's still here. Amazing! He's literally the most annoying enemy in the entire game, and I can't get rid of him. And I'm stuck again. Back to consulting the walkthrough. Would you guess that you find the item to progress in some fucking random spot you would never think to look? I try the next door as Dave just because I've had some luck interacting with things as him, but no dice. Oh shit, this is the worst possible scenario. Locked in a room as Deva with a ton of enemies. However, I thank my lucky stars because most of the enemies end up infighting amongst themselves, and I just gotta clean up the stragglers. Alright, let's save Angelina. Oh my god, she's a zombie now, no! Oh wait, it's just a fake out.
Passage leading to the cellar! It's next to the...
Alright, to the cellar! After playing in this area a bit, I'm happy to report that interacting with stuff as Dave isn't broken anymore. However, these bugs are traded for other ones, as the sound starts fucking up big time. And a lot of these enemies that spawn in just remain motionless and don't attack you. We switch to Deva and are given the ability to fly so we can cross this cavern. Okay, that's it. Never need to use that ability again. After we cross the cavern, the cellar turns into a straight-up mine, which is pretty cool. We do have to play this part as Deva, but since you're forced to, it's more catered around her lack of fighting ability. Unfortunately, it seems like 90% of this area is worthless, because if you just go straight, you are effectively on the correct path, and the only thing I could find was a save point and a rocket to the back. Unfortunately, my worthless excursion has left me without a lot of mana, and this tunnel with a bunch of enemies is a little troublesome to deal with. Luckily, they start infighting again. That's basically Deva's most effective strategy. Just let the enemies kill themselves. After getting out of the mines, we are treated to the caverns. which once again reminds me a lot of Shadowman. But besides that, it's probably the most confusing area to navigate. So you could say it reminds me a lot of Shadowman. A side effect of the buggy nature of this game is sometimes I can't tell if the game is glitching out or working as intended. Like, take this axe guy here. I figured it's some kind of broken spawn and he's supposed to do something, either when I enter the room or take the item. But no, I'm fairly certain that this is the game working as intended. Anyway, the only goal of this area is to find these items and then bring them back to where the game shows you. It just took me a while because I kept getting turned around. After we bring these items, we can go to the area the boss is in. He's pretty easy to defeat after you figure out his weakness. Just shoot these stalactites above him and now he's weak to your weapons. After we defeat him and free Angelina, we're interrupted by a gray void. It's supposed to be the Night Howler, but the cutscene is completely fucking broken. The entire background is gray and he is nowhere to be found. But anyway, the important part is that he's kidnapped Deva, and we don't like that. That's a bad thing. An old lady zombie with an SMG shows up just as an excuse to give Angelina a gun, and it's time to make our daring escape. And I have to say, it's actually pretty cool.
Let it roll off your back and let it slip off your tongue before you lose your loving and it's right back where you started from. Slip off your tongue, loving and it's back to start standing up. Let it roll back and slip off your tongue. Let it roll off your back and let it slip off your tongue before you lose your loving and it's right back where you
We manage our great escape and we end up in a giant graveyard. Besides that though, we are in the final stretch of the game. The only objective here is to go into these mausoleums and put items you got earlier on these pedestals. But what else? The game broke. One of the doors I need to go into won't open. I would almost be a little disappointed if something didn't fuck up at this point. Luckily, reloading a previous save managed to fix the issue. I also found out Angelina can die here if she takes too much damage. I figured she was like the cameraman and couldn't die, but whatever, I'll just be more careful. After visiting all the mausoleums, we can ascend to the higher levels. With this part, you have to be real careful not to let Angelina die. She will go into these rooms and do something for some reason, but you have to protect her while she does it. However, if she dies on the first level of this tower, I think the game kind of freaks out for some reason as it sends both you and Angelina to the second level. If she does die here on the second level, however, it's game over. It's easier said than done to protect Angelina because enemies will spawn right in front of her. If you know they're coming though, it's not that bad. The Night Howler shows up, but he's too preoccupied with infighting and we just run away to the top level of the tower. Here we are at the final showdown of the game. The first order of business is to shoot the Night Howler enough so Angelina can run over to Deva and free her. And then a really long cutscene plays. Then the game gets confused and starts playing audio from that earlier cutscene where Deva was initially kidnapped.
How do you feel?
Anyway, these enemies spawn off to the side, but then they start running up to Deva trying to attack her, which I really don't think they're supposed to do. Why do I think that? Well, as soon as the cutscene ends, they all swarm me and I instantly die. Alright, let's try this again. I use a med kit as soon as I have control, and then I get out of there quick. Luckily, the game lets you let loose with Deva here, as it gives you really powerful magic and infinite mana. I quickly make short work of the surrounding enemies, and the Night Howler spawns for one final showdown, where he just kind of stands there. Whatever, I kill his ass, and it's time to bear witness to the final cutscene.
Got a confession to make.
Go on, kiss her. We'll be on the cover of Time magazine. They'll be green with envy on CNL.
If you think you're gonna get off that lightly.
You know, if this whole game wasn't so bizarre, I'd probably take umbrage with this. As it stands, however, fuck it.
Well, friends, we've come to the end of Devil Inside already. Once again, love has won the day, good has triumphed over evil, and our sponsors have decided to double our budget. I think our two lovers deserve some well-earned rest.
Jack, I think we have enough energy left for something else. Something a little more fun.
Over the credits, we get Jack making calls to various people, which is actually pretty funny.
Hello, Game Squad? What do you mean 6 in the morning? Oh yeah, the time difference. So, how's it going? What do you mean bugs?
Bugs! Holy shit. Bugs is right. But you know what? In spite of all those bugs, I still really loved this game. It's just the atmosphere is so good. This game is so up my alley, it's practically delivering my mail. Even the horrible game-breaking bugs were not enough to make me want to stop playing it. If you are interested in playing The Devil Inside but have been discouraged by all the bugs, I would still give it a shot. As the most nerve-wracking thing for me was being unsure if I was going to get soft-locked, but as we know, that didn't happen. I'll have it linked in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on